The new season on World of Tanks console is finally here, but with this new season comes a brand new tier 10, and that is exactly what we're taking a look at in today's video. And there'll be some game clips and stuff as we go through this video discussing what this tank is all about and the sorts of things that you can expect from a vehicle that is like this one. And of course I tested this in about 5 games roughly, and got a good feel for how this vehicle plays, and I was definitely disappointed with how it actually performs in the game, and not from a how good it is perspective, but the potential that this sort of vehicle actually had in order to be a fun vehicle that people can use and be a little bit more novel than a lot of the other light tanks that we currently have in the game. And so what do I mean by all of that? Well, essentially this is the 3-shot autoloader that has a very good gun. Well, it's supposed to have a very good gun with a decent amount of damage. It has 420 damage per shell, which is very good. It gets 3 shells in each of the clips, so you got a total damage that you can deal of 1260, I believe. And then you also get the opportunity to load HESH rounds, although they're not HESH rounds as they would normally be. They're HE but with a crazy amount of penetration. So the HE rounds have 180 pen, but they do 570 damage. So it's almost like a tier 10 from Cold War being brought over, if that makes sense. So it's like a Cold War vehicle being brought into World War II. The standard penetration's 315. I mean, no real issues when it comes to penning vehicles reliably. Using the standard ammunition, that's pretty much better than all of the medium tanks' premium ammunition. So that gives you a good scale as to the pen is absolutely fine on the tank. You're not really going to have any issues, and it doesn't get a premium round, so to say, that you need to fire. So it's quite cheap to actually run this tank, and of course you get good accuracy, good aim time, 0.3 accuracy, 1.9 second aim time. However, the problem with this tank when it comes to its gun is probably the biggest thing. This is where I feel like Wargaming really just messed this tank up. They gave it probably one of the worst shell velocities out of any of the tanks I've ever played. It is atrocious. Just to put it in perspective, I'm going to grab up another vehicle, like let's grab up a TD so we can get a gist of what sort of region that we're looking at. So if I have a look at, let's think of another tank destroyer. So let's grab the Badger, for example, from the UK line. We have its max ammo speed. So the Badger's standard ammunition, which is its slowest ammunition out, or joint second, or joint slowest ammunition, is 1,000 meters a second. This vehicle has 503. That puts it nearly double half the actual speed, and it is very noticeable in the game. And that means that when you're using an autoloader, you have very bad potential to actually clip someone out. And the reason for this is because of the fact that, yes, okay, you have a pretty decent inch clip reload, which is 3 seconds. The difference is that the difference between a tank that has 3-second inch clip reload but has a shell velocity of 1,000 meters a second is that as soon as you're reloaded, you're firing and it's hitting the target, okay? So this tank, however, you have a little bit of a delay because the round is so slow, and the arc means that the travel time of the shell is much longer. It's nearly double, for example, when looking at the Badger in this one. And that means that the opponent has that extra bit of travel time in order to A, move out of the way, B, potentially angle so they bounce the round, or C, just completely go behind an obstacle, at which point you can't hit them anymore. And that means that because now you've added a 3-second inch clip reload to a additional, tank that has a very bad travel time where trying to aim in front of people, it just ends up that the tank's gun feels like a potato because you are so slow in the rounds going out, and it completely voids the whole point of the tank in being a somewhat fast tank destroyer that can get forward and have a really good power to weight ratio of nearly 28 as a base value, which we were actually running the advanced powertrain to boost up the top speed by 10%, since it's going to be limited by the actual top speed of the vehicle and not the power to weight ratio, because yeah, that basically means it's going to get up to top speed very quickly, but because the top speed is quite low, sat at 57 kilometers an hour, you want to boost up that top speed so that it has the potential to actually go higher than that. So it's not limited by the top speed as opposed to the horsepower, which is the usual thing that stops a tank from being quite fast. This tank has that option. It looks like it could have been an interesting tank. But once again, Wargaming doing like 95% of the work, as you'd expect, and then that extra 5% just ruining the entire experience. And the tank could have had slower rounds, but the fact that they are 500 meters a second puts this tank so badly in the you have to YOLO in order to get close enough to actually deal damage to tanks, but then it has no armor. And then it's not quite fast enough that you can go in and actually get away with it. It's quite big, so you would rather play an AMX 13-105. What is this tank trying to be? And once again, it's like it could have quite easily had the show velocity at 750, 800. It's slower, but it's still not terrible. Having it this low just basically has nullified the actual experience of the tank, and I think that has kind of ruined this tank for me. I don't think this tank is a particularly very good one, and even with a higher shell velocity, it's still not going to be that good. It's got no armor, it's quite boxy, it can't quite play the light tank role that it's trying to do, and it can't quite play the TD role, but it is something a bit different, and I think different in World of Tanks is good. We don't want the same stuff being pushed out. I'm looking at you, Cold War T-72 variants and all of the Abrams variants and everything like that. I think having a bit more variation is a good thing. It's just, I don't get why they nerf certain aspects to the ground that make the whole tank pointless to play. And then you start looking at the other stats and it's like, okay, well, this tank could have been interesting. But unfortunately, now they've made it so bad in that department that I'm looking at all of the other stats and I'm thinking, well, there's just other tanks that don't have this terrible negative, but have pretty much everything else. Why would I play it? And this is the problem with Wargaming's current stance on tank balancing. I just don't get it. Why ruin the shell velocity this bad? And I'm sure they'll come along and they'll go, yeah, okay, we misplayed. We should have realised that having shell velocity this low is going to make the tank pointless. Yeah, we're going to up it to 750 meters a second on the heat rounds and keep the HE at 600 or something like that, you know. They'll probably go ahead and do that. But I don't get how nobody is raising this as a potential issue for the game. It is not like the tank is dealing 1,800 damage, because let's be real here, the shell velocity on some of the highest alpha damage tanks is insanely fast. But they gave a tank with basically no alpha damage, comparatively, terrible accuracy. Terrible shell velocity even. Whereas you compare it to, you know, the KV-2. The KV-2 has a higher shell velocity than this tank. To put that in perspective, the derp cannon vehicle of the game has a better shell velocity than this vehicle. So why would you play a TD that is supposed to be a bit more of a sniper slash, you know, go in and surprise people? Why would you have such terrible shell velocity? I mean, to all intents and purposes, seems like a bit of a mistake. I don't know. Maybe it should have been double the shell velocity that it currently is. I can see them definitely changing this. I hope that they do change this, because I don't think it's going to be overpowered in whatever way that they change the shell velocity. So, yeah. Comes from a good tank, potentially. Not a competitive tank, but a fun, interesting, novel tank, to be once again a completely useless vehicle because of the fact that they ruin one stat into the ground in a tank that isn't anywhere near representative of what you would expect to have a high or low shell velocity. Something like an FE 4005, for example, you'd understand because it has a huge gun that can deal so much damage that the shell is so big, and you know, you could make it that way. But with this, it seems so weird, and maybe it's realistic. Either way, a realistic is not in an arcade game like World of Tanks, so I don't know why you would try and make that argument. But either way, that is the new tank, and my kind of thoughts and opinions. It plays quite well in terms of like when you can get up close and personal, but then it's not quite quick enough to actually get out of there, and you can often just get removed quite easily. It's a weird vehicle, and I think people can definitely make it work, which is why it's interesting. But I wanted to make this video to make you aware of what this tank is actually like, and hopefully raise some of your guys' opinions to see what you guys think about this vehicle. Have you actually just sponged a ton of money into the game to get it already, or have you kind of managed to just grind the game and get close to it, buying the Ultimate Season Pass to boost up a couple of levels? Whatever you've done, I'd be interested to see your thoughts, and even if you don't have the tank, what you think about the statistics of this tank, because it's interesting. And of course, we're all going to get it as part of the Season Pass rewards at level 100 if you buy the 2000 gold Season Pass, which is 100% worth buying, by the way. If you are playing the game and you are invested into the game, it is the best thing you can buy. If you're not that interested in picking up vehicles, don't spend the money. It's absolutely fine, you don't have to. But if you do play the game and you want to get gold back, and more gold than you spend, get the Season Pass. It's the best thing you can do. I do it every single season regardless, even though I buy the Ultimate Season Pass. Often I will actually make my money back nearly on buying the Ultimate Season Pass, from essentially just the rewards of the normal Season Pass, because you get Commander's War Chest, you get Heroes War Chest, General's War Chest, you also get gold back from the season itself, and it nearly pays for the entire Ultimate Season Pass. And if I get a duplicate premium, which is like 10k gold, I've covered my cost for that Ultimate Season Pass and nearly the cost of the next Ultimate Season Pass. So yeah, over time you'll probably end up with duplicate premiums if you have played the game for a while and you've got quite a few. But yeah, I thought I'd cover it today, showcase what the tank is like in the actual game, and give my thoughts and opinions on it. It's a solid vehicle. I like the idea, but it isn't great in the game, and it hasn't been executed 100%, I don't think, in a well thought out manner. But with that out of the way, hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure to like if you did enjoy the video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.